What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Sean O'Malley squashes beef with Conor McGregor. The beef between bantamweight champion Sugar Sean O'Malley and former champ Conor McGregor is no more. After the Irish star recently took aim at O'Malley in a post on social media amid Ryan Garcia's failed drug test, the two UFC standouts appeared to have some beef despite the fact that O'Malley had been a longtime supporter of McGregor's. According to O'Malley, who spoke during a recent episode of the Timbo Sugar Show, not only is he still excited about McGregor's return fight later this month, but he and the former champ have also squashed their beef.
Did you guys see Conor's the promo? The Conor Chandler promo? That's pretty sweet.
Yes.
God, that fight, see, I love when Conor's back, dude. That just feels different for me. We talked. No, I tried to hate Conor for a few days. I f***ed you. But it didn't work. I'm still a fan. I don't
Hard not to be.
Dude, Conor's a man.
Yeah.
With fight night just weeks away, the hype surrounding McGregor's return continues to grow. As the bantamweight champ and his coach Tim Welsh also discussed on the latest episode of the Timbo Sugar Show, no fighter has been the same after returning from an injury as devastating as the one sustained by McGregor the last time we saw him in action. Considering the injury and the extended layoff, it'll be interesting to see how things play out for McGregor's return. Next, let's take a look at UFC referee clarifies UFC 302 controversy. This past weekend, Kevin Holland submitted Michael Oleksiejczuk with a spectacular armbar to snap a two-fight skid that had previously seen him drop back-to-back decisions. Holland's losing streak wasn't the only thing that was snapped in the fight, however. After refusing to tap, Oleksiejczuk's arm appeared to break, with Holland indicating after the fight that he heard his opponent's arm pop during the submission. After referee Herb Dean intervened and called off the fight, Oleksiejczuk protested the stoppage, leaving the MMA community stunned given the severity of the injury. In addition, the situation created some confusion given that the referee stopped the fight rather than Oleksiejczuk tapping out. Former fighter Aljamain took to social media to get clarity on the matter from veteran referee Big John McCarthy, writing, "Big John McCarthy, curious on the rule set for injuries like the arm break/dislocation last night. I'm for fighters being allowed to fight their way out. But is it the ref's job to stop it if there's an injury observed, or just their discretion if the fighter can safely continue?" The godfather of the unified rules of MMA then responded, writing, "What's up, Alan? As a professional fighter, the referee should allow the fighter all the opportunity to extricate themselves from the submission. But if the referee sees a dislocation or a break of the limb, the fight is over. It does not matter if the fighter did not tap. When you look at records and you see winner by technical submission armbar, it is telling you that the losing fighter allowed the limb to be broken or dislocated. If you see it with a choke, it's telling you that the fighter went unconscious from a sub without tapping." This explains why, in the case of the Holland-Oleksiejczuk fight, the bout is recorded on Tapology as a technical armbar, whereas in the case of the Jailton Almeida-Alexander Romanov fight, the bout is recorded as a submission. Next up, let's take a look at Stephen A. Smith sends a warning to Conor McGregor. Ahead of Conor McGregor's highly anticipated return to the octagon, it's no secret that with a win, the UFC could look to fast-track McGregor to a shot at the title. The potential situation has been talked about at length by the MMA community, with longtime commentator Joe Rogan discussing it on the Joe Rogan Experience, and lightweight champion Islam Makhachev even discussing the potential situation prior to his UFC 302 fight with Dustin Poirier. As ESPN's Stephen A. Smith recently indicated on First Take this week, McGregor has no business being in the octagon against a grappler, and in the event he defeats Michael Chandler, fans shouldn't call for a Makhachev-McGregor fight.
Shannon, I was in Vegas for the Conor McGregor Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. It was one of the greatest events I've ever attended in my life. It was unreal, okay?
Oh, yeah.
But what we learned in that fight is that Conor McGregor has no business being in the octagon against a grappler, which is with Makhachev. I mean, this brother right here, he's something special, and he's not going to try to strike against Conor McGregor.
Given that McGregor has participated in sit-down interviews with Stephen A. Smith in the past, it'll be interesting to see if he does so again ahead of his UFC 303 fight later this month. Next, let's take a look at Sean Strickland gets disrespected in interview. Former middleweight champion Sean Strickland didn't shy away from discussing fighter pay both before and after his UFC 302 fight with Paulo Costa this past weekend. After meeting with the UFC to discuss his pay prior to agreeing to fight Costa, Strickland was pretty open during fight week about the fact that, in most cases, the UFC does not do right by their fighters when it comes to pay. After his win in the co-main event, Strickland took a verbal jab at former UFC fighters who have made the jump to bare-knuckle boxing, indicating that he doesn't want to wind up following in their footsteps down the line. In response, former UFC champion turned bare-knuckle boxer Eddie Alvarez fired back at Strickland on a recent episode of the MMA Hour.
Sean Strickland had a funny take on bare knuckle, and I thought it was kind of. He said something like, called it like a promotion, and that they pay like blah blah blah. And I'm like, that's ironic for a guy who just like literally you fought in UFC your entire life for nothing, and you literally just got your first big little paycheck, and you're gonna talk on, a promotion that is just starting. You know what I mean? So like, I thought it was cute of him to say something about payment, because he's like, oh, they don't get paid like he probably does well in UFC, but like I make more than Sean Strickland. I fight bare knuckle, but he's a complainer of pay, but he's talking about other promotions.
Sure, no, I know.
Hey, they pay like. They pay more than you're getting paid, and you're like...
From the sounds of things, despite frequently talking about how much he loves to fight, we'll likely never see the former middleweight champ compete under the BKFC banner. Next, let's take a look at Kamaru Usman calls out Dustin Poirier after UFC 302 loss. In the wake of Dustin Poirier's UFC 302 loss to Islam Makhachev, the former interim champion indicated that fans very well may have watched his final fight. As the Diamond explained, if competing for a UFC title is off the table following his latest loss, then he has no plans to continue to fight for a paycheck. Despite that, former UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman indicated that if Poirier decides to stick around and wants to move up in weight, then he's interested in throwing down inside the octagon. He spoke about the potential fight on a recent episode of he and Henry Cejudo's Pound for Pound podcast.
But he's got fights. You're right. The Volkanovski fight could, that's a fun fight. I'm not in any way throwing my hat in, but he wants to go up. Hey, that's a fun fight. I'm not saying I'm welcoming the fight. Don't do it. I'm not saying that. But I always put my mind there. If I was to ever compete against a guy like Dustin Poirier, that would be a fantastic one, because it's a guy that I could really respect through and through the process, really through the process, and we go out and it's like you and your main training partner, and you just like, yeah, we're gonna beat each other up, we're gonna push each other to the brink. That would be a fun fight.
Of course, as Poirier has indicated in the past, he believes that the fighters who cut down to 170 pounds to compete at welterweight outweigh him by a considerable amount, meaning a move up to welterweight likely is still off the table for the Diamond. Next, let's take a look at Michael Page would easily beat Ian Garry. Later this month at UFC 303, undefeated Irish contender Ian Garry will step into the octagon to fight fellow striker Michael Venom Page in a highly anticipated bout that will see the winner continue their climb up the 170-pound ladder in pursuit of a title shot. Ahead of the fight, the betting odds are split nearly down the middle, with Garry sitting as a slight -130 favorite, while MVP sits as a +110 underdog. Despite that, Randy Brown recently indicated on the MMA Hour that he believes Page will easily beat Ian Garry.
Oh, MVP, easy. Yeah.
Why easy?
Easy. MVP, man, is super dynamic, and I think he brings an element into the division that I think a lot of people are not used to seeing. Movement, lateral movement, and just a level of creativity that most people aren't seeing at all. And if you're not used to seeing that, even a style like mine, just based off movement alone, it throws people for a loop. You know what I mean? So you look at a guy like MVP, and I think that movement is going to throw Ian Garry off, because Ian Garry is the bigger guy. He's also used to using things like that movement. But when you go against a guy has a better skill set in that realm, you know what I mean, and has more experience in that realm and better ability to close the distance, I think he picks him apart.
On the flip side, Sugar Sean O'Malley shared his thoughts on the fight during a recent episode of the Timbo Sugar Show.
Page will blitz in, and Ian is good counterpunching, and when he blitzes in like that, if he gets timed, could put his lights out.
As O'Malley's coach Tim Welsh explained, however, given that both Garry and Page like to counterpunch, the fight could wind up being rather uneventful. Now, let's shift gears and take a look at Aljamain Sterling agrees with Dana White's comments. Despite Islam Makhachev's recent victory over Dustin Poirier, UFC CEO Dana White indicated that he believes John Jones is still the pound-for-pound king. Although the comment ruffled some feathers, bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling agreed with White while speaking in a video for his YouTube channel.
Dana White in the pound-for-pound list saying that
John Jones is pound for pound over Islam. But for me, I agree. I think if we're talking pound for pound, I mean, everyone's criteria is different, but I think pound for pound would mean, the way I understand it is, if weight was not a factor, size wasn't a factor, skill for skill, who would be the best guy? And I agree, I think it's John Jones.
The MMA community was quick to weigh in on the topic, with longtime reporter Aaron Bronstetter writing, "How do you define pound for pound? I agree with Dana White that if you put John Jones in a room with anyone else, that he is the one who would emerge. But I think that the spirit of pound for pound is just that Jones would have to beat a heavyweight replica of Makhachev." Thoughts? ESPN's Ian Parker then weighed in, writing, "If this is how it's measured, then the lower weight classes are at an immediate disadvantage, which doesn't make a ton of sense. I always believed who would have the most dominant success in more than one weight class is how you measure pound for pound. If you put Jones in a room with Aspinall, are you 100% confident he walks out the winner?" Bronstetter then responded, adding, "Can't say I'm certain, I'm just contextualizing it based on the concept of pound for pound. Jones can be considered the greatest combat athlete ever and not be the top pound for pound fighter today. They aren't mutually exclusive." The one and only Grabaka Hitman then shared his perspective, writing, "I don't really think about pound for pound, but probably something like this. Overall skills / well-roundedness, plus divisional dominance, plus recent performances against top competition." Cage Side Press's Val Dewar then joined in on the conversation, adding, "Yeah, pound for pound is about pure skill, regardless of weight class. Islam is the most skilled, period. While things could change when Jones returns to action, it's currently Islam Makhachev who sits atop the UFC.com pound for pound ladder." The MMA community goes off on Conor McGregor after it appears that he's pulled out of his fight at UFC 303 against Michael Chandler. The UFC not only canceled the press conference that was supposed to be held over the weekend, but they also deleted all of the videos and media released before the event. Here's what the MMA community had to say. "Imagine you spent $2,000 for nosebleed seats to see Conor McGregor fight and he pulls out. For years and years and years, Dana White told the world that getting a fighter like Conor McGregor with that level of wealth to fight again was an extremely difficult task. Ariel Helwani, New York Rick, and MMA fighting media called him a liar for that. Live public apology coming? Michael Chandler after sitting out for 2 years just for Conor McGregor to pull out of UFC 303. I can't believe Conor McGregor quit another fight. It's disappointing to see his career potentially come to an end like this." Conor McGregor, once hailed as one of the greatest fighters in UFC history, has seemingly reached the end of his career. After a string of losses and controversies, McGregor's decision to quit yet another fight only solidifies the notion that his time at the top of the sport may be over. His lack of commitment and focus has been apparent in recent years, and it appears that he may no longer have the drive to compete at the highest level. On the other hand, Michael Chandler is on the rise and poised to make a run for the title. With an impressive record and a hunger for success, Chandler has the skills and determination necessary to become a dominant force in the UFC lightweight division. His recent performances have been nothing short of spectacular, and he has quickly established himself as a top contender. As McGregor's star fades, Chandler shines brighter than ever. It's clear that the torch is being passed, and Chandler is ready to take on the challenge of becoming a champion. With his talent and work ethic, there's no doubt that he will be a force to be reckoned with in the UFC for years to come. McGregor's career may be coming to an end, but Chandler's is just beginning. Conor McGregor and John Jones are absolute legends, but as the cliche goes, your best ability is availability. Stop putting these guys on pedestals and support these fighters that are making it happen right now and are taking it seriously for everyone involved. Top comments. And Dana is comparing beating Gane to someone like Poirier. Again, brain damage. Jones must have some Diddy type shit on Dana because the glazing is unreal. Dana says John Jones is still fighting, as if John Jones is still fighting, lol. He's had one fight in 6 years. Jones will never be the GOAT. He's a cheater. He's an asterisk. Every time a judge messes up a card that bad, they should be suspended indefinitely without pay and never allowed to judge anything because their perception is horrible.